Great. Welcome back. We're up to question 14 from practice exam 5. So we're still doing some payroll stuff. This time we're going to do the journal entries for the employer. And what we're going to be doing are payroll expense and then payroll tax expense. So the thing to keep in mind is when you're doing payroll expense, you're thinking about what the salaries are. Excuse me, sneezing. You think about what the salaries are, and that's an expense to you as an employer. The deductions that come out for the employee, right, because the employee owes federal income tax, the employee owes some Social Security, the employee owes some Medicare, and maybe bonds and things like that. The things you deduct are payables, but they're not expenses to you because that belong to the employee, right? The employee owes their own personal federal income tax. So that's not an expense. However, as an employer, you do have some separate payroll tax expenses, which include the employer's share of Social Security, employer's share of Medicare, plus unemployment taxes, federal and state, which we call federal FUTA, state SUTA. So employees don't owe FUTA and SUTA, but employers do. That's part of their payroll tax expense. So splitting up what payables go where and what is an actual expense to the employer is what is the tricky part. So the first thing we'll do is what we call payroll expenses, right? So that's the salary expenses. So you paid out some salaries, and that's an expense to you. At the same time, yes, you did have to keep some payables aside for your employees. So let's do that on May 15th. All right. Well, our total of salaries is $15 million. Employee withholding is Social Security and Medicare and the employee's federal taxes. Employees don't have to pay that, so those aren't part of the salary expenses. That's not something we're withholding that's going to become a payable on the benefit of an employee. So let's set this up first. We know salaries are an expense, so that's always an expense. Salary expense. I think on the homework maybe you had several categories of salary. Maybe there was office employees and warehouse employees, and you had to add the salaries, and that's fine. You might have something like that, but your salaries are your expense when you're doing salary expense. And that's just your $15 million. And expenses, of course, are always debits when you increase them. So we've increased our salary expense $15 million. So we need to have payables, right? And we know that when we write our paychecks to our employees, we're going to withhold Social Security, we're going to withhold Medicare, and we're going to withhold the federal income tax. So those become payables. FICA payable, and if you put Social Security payable, that would be fine. I don't care. FICA payable is $200,000. Medicare payable is $10,000. And income tax, employee federal income tax payable, right? Because we're withholding it from the employees and we're going to have to pay it out to the IRS, is $5 million. All right, so those three don't total $15 million, so the difference is obviously what I'm going to pay out to my employees. So that's my salaries payable. All right, so to calculate that, I just need to go 15 million minus 200 minus 10,000 minus 5 million, and that's 9,900 9,079. Wait, hold on. Let me break out my calculator because it looks like there's a slight error. I'm kind of looking at the answer sheet here, and I'm seeing a couple different answers. Sorry about that. So the right answer is 15 minus 5 minus 200 minus 10, 9,790. I think on the answer sheet there's a wrong answer. I'll fix that for you, but that's the correct answer. So salaries payable is 9,790. All right, and we're done. So the next part of the problem, journalize the entry to record payroll tax. So payroll taxes are where the employer has to pay the employer's share of Social Security, Medicare, FUTA, and SUTA. You'll notice that for the employee, when we did the payroll, the employee doesn't have to pay the workman's comp insurance. So that's done. These are things the employee owed. We've set aside as payables. Now we're going to calculate our own company's taxes and set those aside as payables, right? So what do we owe? Well, the company pays the same amount as the employees on FICA. So we're going to pay $200,000 for Social Security. We're going to pay $100,000 for Medicare. We don't repay the federal income tax, but we do pay the FUTA and the SUTA. All right. So all I have to do is add those up. On the homework problems, these were given as percentages. So I suppose in theory I might tell you, you calculate FUTA based on 4%, and you'd have to take 4% of the salary to be more like the homework. You know, or I may just give it to you. All right, so we'll just add those all up. So we've got the Social Security. I'll just calculate payroll taxes, right? So we've got 200 plus 10,000 plus 40,000 plus 80,000. All right, so I've just added the ones that I have to pay, and that totals to 330,000. So that's the taxes as an employer that I need to journalize. So payroll tax expense, of course, is nothing more than an expense, right? So on 515 we have payroll tax expense. 330, right? All our expenses, as we increase them, are debits. And we're going to have the same thing. FICA payable, 200,000. Medicare payable, 10,000. Not employee income tax and not salaries. We've already recognized those. But we're going to have something new, the FUTA payable, which is 40,000. And the SUTA payable, which is 80,000. That's it. You did those payroll transactions. All right, the only thing I would say that could be different is maybe there might be some different employee deductions. Things that were in the homework were things like purchasing bonds, additional retirement things, they would still just become payables. And FUTA and SUTA on the homework, you're given a rate. So, and the problem here, we just told you 40,000. Whereas in theory, you might just be told it's 2% or something, and you'd have to calculate that. All right, that is it. We'll move on to question 15.